They say you can tell when something's about to go wrong. A crack in the air. A sudden stillness. A hesitation in a kiss that used to come naturally. I used to dismiss that kind of talk as emotional superstition. But now, looking back, I know the moment everything shifted. I just didn't know what it meant at the time. It was a Tuesday. I remember because the garbage truck came late, and I was sitting at the window waiting, coffee in hand, wondering if this was what settling into life felt like. Predictable routines. Shared silences. Mutual glances that didn't always require words. Jenna came into the room wearing that green sweater I loved, her hair damp from the shower, and I felt that tug of affection that doesn't need permission. She kissed me on the cheek, smiled half-heartedly, and said something about running late to meet April. It was small. The kind of thing that doesn't register until later, when you're sifting through the debris. She'd been distracted for a few weeks by then, but I told myself it was work. I told myself a lot of things. There was this moth trapped in the room that morning. It kept fluttering around the light above our kitchen table, slamming itself against the bulb over and over like it couldn't believe that wasn't the way out. I remember watching it and thinking, isn't that just like people? Thinking if we hit the same wall hard enough, it might finally disappear. The day unraveled in little ways. Her text replies were shorter. A missed call that she didn't mention. Then a message from April that evening asking if Jenna was feeling better. Better from what? I waited until after dinner to ask. She said she hadn't gone out, after all. Claimed she wasn't feeling well, took a nap instead. I nodded. Maybe she was tired. Maybe she forgot to tell April plans had changed. Maybe. We were fine. Or so I thought. No yelling. No cold shoulders. Just life. Just two people in a rhythm that occasionally hit the wrong note. But you can only pretend not to hear the dissonance for so long. It happened on a Sunday. One of those warm, mocking early spring days where the sun pretends it's summer just to make the eventual cold feel crueler. We were supposed to go to her parents' place for dinner. She said she needed to stop by the office first. That morning she was different. Nicer. Sweeter. A softness I hadn't seen in weeks. I kissed her as she left and told her not to be late. She smiled, held my face a second longer than usual. Said she loved me. I remember feeling relieved. Then April called. We weren't close. Cordial, mostly. She was Jenna's best friend, and like most best friends, she treated me like someone who might hurt her friend at any moment. She didn't say hello. I thought you should know, she said. I didn't want her to get away with it. I had no idea what she was talking about. The silence between her sentence and my response felt like a plane hanging in midair. She's with Ryan, April said flatly. They'd been seeing each other for a month. She told me it was because you cheated on her. My heart stopped in a very specific way. Not metaphorical. Not poetic. It physically stuttered. What? I didn't believe her at first. April continued, and her voice cracked, like she was more betrayed by Jenna than I was. But she swore you had. Said she saw messages. That she was just getting even. I could barely hear the rest. Something about a guy at my work. Some rumor. Something someone said. April didn't know the details. Just that Jenna took it as truth and used it to justify sleeping with someone else. Not confronting me. Not asking. Just believing. I hadn't cheated. Not even close. The worst part? I knew exactly where the rumor came from. Brian. He was a loudmouthed coworker with a petty streak and a crush on Jenna he'd never admitted. He made some joke once at a company barbecue about me and a coworker. Jenna had laughed, but later she asked if it was true. I told her it wasn't. Because it wasn't. She said she believed me. That was 5 months ago. When Jenna came back from her office run, she was glowing in that way people try to hide. I didn't say anything at first. I let her talk. Let her smile. Let her lie with her eyes. And then I asked about Ryan. The way her face fell was like watching glass drop in slow motion. Her lips parted. 1,000 excuses queued behind them. April called, I said. Her jaw clenched. She sat down, crossed her legs like we were negotiating. It only happened a few times, she said. I didn't respond. I thought you were cheating. I didn't respond. I saw a message on your phone. Brian told me you had something going on. I couldn't breathe. I felt stupid. So you slept with someone? It wasn't like that. Of course it was. That was when she started crying. The ugly kind. But I felt nothing. No pity. No anger. Just a widening void where the warmth used to live. She had borrowed a truth. One she liked better than reality. And then built a betrayal on top of it. Trust doesn't break in a single snap. It unravels. One assumption. One lie. One silent doubt at a time. I left the room. I left the house. I didn't come back that night. And I didn't answer her calls. The first night away felt like stepping into the eye of a storm. Everything was too calm. My body was tense like it expected an impact that never came. I checked into a cheap hotel a few miles from the house. The kind with stiff sheets and lamps that buzz when you turn them on. I didn't sleep. I just laid there, staring at the popcorn ceiling, trying to feel something other than that hollow burn in my chest. Jenna called 17 times that night. Left voicemails. Sent texts. Some angry, some pleading. Some so cryptic they read like apologies written in a different language. I didn't respond. Not because I wanted to punish her. But because I didn't trust myself not to say something I couldn't take back. The next morning, I sat on the edge of the bed, listening to her last voicemail. Her voice was hoarse, and she said my name like it was a question. I didn't want to believe it, you know. That you cheated. I didn't. But it made sense. Everything fit. And I didn't know how to ask. I didn't want to ask. That part stuck with me. She didn't want to ask. Because asking might have shattered the narrative she preferred. I went back to the house on Wednesday. Not to talk. Just to grab some clothes and my laptop. She was home. Sitting on the bottom step, clutching a mug like it was the only solid thing left in her world. She looked up at me like I was the ghost. I didn't speak. Just walked past her. Up the stairs. She followed. Are you going to leave me? I didn't answer. I know what I did. I know it was stupid. But I swear I thought you had already left me. Still, I said nothing. I packed. I kept my face still. Inside, everything was trembling. I wanted to scream. To throw something. To shake her and ask how she could ever believe that of me. Brian said he saw you with someone. He said she was all over you. I saw a message. I thought it meant something. It didn't, I finally said. Because it wasn't what you thought. I didn't want to lose you. So you burned it down first. She covered her face with her hands and began sobbing. I watched her for a moment. This person I had built a life with. This woman who used to tell me all her secrets now sobbing like a stranger in my bedroom. That was the moment it hit me. Even if I stayed, we could never go back. I moved in with my brother for a while. His place was small and smelled like gym socks and cheap pizza, but it had distance. That was all I needed. Somewhere Jenna couldn't reach. I started seeing a therapist. I didn't plan to. But after 2 weeks of feeling like I was floating outside my own skin, I made an appointment. I needed someone to help me name what I was feeling. Betrayal is too clean a word. What I felt was messier. A grief that didn't know where to land. I told the therapist everything. She asked if I still loved Jenna. I said I didn't know. Because I didn't. Love had turned into something I couldn't recognize. She asked if I could ever forgive her. I didn't answer. It wasn't just that she slept with someone else. It was the belief. That she could take someone else's word over mine. That she built a justification around a rumor. That she gave herself permission to destroy something without checking if it could be saved. One night, Brian messaged me. Said he heard things had gotten out of hand. I ignored him. He messaged again, apologizing for the joke, saying he never meant it to cause problems. And then, she came on to me once, a while back. I turned her down. I didn't think it mattered. Guess I was wrong. I stared at that message for a long time. Part of me wanted to punch a wall. The other part just laughed. Not out loud. Just inside, that bitter kind of laugh that leaves a scar. I didn't reply. What was the point? The truth had been twisted so many times by then, it was barely recognizable. Jenna sent me a letter. Handwritten. 6 pages. I didn't read it right away. I let it sit in my bag for 3 days before finally unfolding it. It was full of everything. Apologies. Rationalizations. Nostalgia. She wrote about our first apartment, our wedding, our trip to Oregon where we got lost and ended up sleeping in the car. She said she missed me. Said she still believed we could fix it. At the end, she wrote, I know I ruined the story we were writing. But maybe there's a new one we can start. I folded the letter and set it in a drawer. Sometimes, when you break a mirror, you don't get to keep the reflection you liked. I didn't open the next few letters she sent. Or the box she left at my brother's doorstep with some of my old things and a framed photo of us from Colorado. It felt like she was trying to build a memorial before the body was cold. A month passed. Then 2. I filed for separation. The lawyer asked if I wanted to cite adultery. I told him no. I didn't need that label. It wasn't about the legal strategy. It was about the emotional finality. Jenna showed up at my office one afternoon. I was in the parking lot, walking to my car. She looked tired. Thin. Hair pulled back. Eyes carrying the kind of weight you only earn from sleepless nights and bad choices. Can we talk? I leaned on the car. Crossed my arms. I think we already said everything. You won't even look at me anymore. I looked right at her then. I believe Brian, she said, her voice trembling. Because I was scared. Because I needed something to blame. Because I felt like you were slipping away and I didn't know how to hold on without hurting you first. And that made sense to you? It made pain feel like control. That part, at least, felt honest. We stood there for a while. The wind picking up. The kind of cold that sticks to your clothes. I saw her shiver. I still love you, she said. I nodded. Maybe. But you loved the version of me that was easier to doubt. She didn't have a response for that. She left. That was the last time we saw each other in person. I wish I could say I felt closure. But some betrayals don't wrap up with a bow. They just echo. There was a reunion at work. Some kind of quarterly mixer. A few drinks. Stiff conversations. I stood there with a beer in my hand, trying not to think about how many people in that room probably thought I'd been the one who cheated. Rumors outlive explanations. Brian avoided me the whole night. I didn't mind. But someone else, someone from HR, I think, came up and said, Hey man, sorry about everything. People say a lot of shit. Hope you're doing okay. I nodded. Thanked him. But that phrase, people say a lot of shit, it rang in my head like a cracked bell. That's how it happened. A joke, a look, a suggestion whispered at the right time to the wrong person. No one checks the facts. Everyone just wants a story. Something juicy to break the boredom. Jenna had taken that story and made it gospel. And she had rewritten me into a villain I never auditioned to play. I saw April again. She asked if I hated her for what she told me. I said no. She looked relieved. Then she said something I didn't expect. I think she wanted you to find out. I think deep down, she hoped it would force something to happen. Make you fight for her. Make you confess. Even if it wasn't true. That thought sat like ice in my gut. Because I could see it. Jenna had always been dramatic beneath the surface. The kind of person who needed chaos to feel something. And maybe she'd convinced herself the pain was worth it, if it meant being proved right. Even if she wasn't. I walked home that night and tried to remember the first time she ever doubted me. The very first crack. I couldn't pinpoint it. That's what scared me. Because I didn't know when it started, I didn't know how to stop it. The separation finalized quietly. No drama. No fight. Just some signatures and a quiet goodbye through lawyers. She didn't contest anything. But she did leave me one last message. A voice memo. I played it once, alone in the dark. She said, "I don't know who I am without you. But I also don't know how to be with you without destroying it. And I'm sorry for that. I'm so sorry I believed the worst version of you. Because that says more about me than it ever did about you. I didn't delete it. I just moved it to a folder I never open. Some truths aren't meant to be relived. Just remembered. The first time I laughed after everything fell apart, I startled myself. It was at the gas station. Some kid was dancing to music pumping out of his car, no shame, just moving like nobody was watching, except everyone was. A woman in line behind me rolled her eyes. But I laughed. Not because it was funny. Because it was real. Unfiltered. Honest. And I realized how rare that had become in my life. I went home that night and stood in front of the bathroom mirror longer than usual. I looked older. Thinner, too. A few new lines around my eyes. But something else had changed, something behind the eyes. There was a weight that hadn't been there before, and a calm that I didn't yet know how to trust. It didn't feel like healing. More like learning to sit beside the pain without flinching. Jenna never called again. Not after the message. I think we both knew that was her last word. And I didn't try to follow up. What would be the point? There was nothing left to salvage. Only pieces to carry forward, carefully, like broken glass. Sometimes I wake up expecting her next to me. Phantom habits. Muscle memory. The ghost of a life we almost had. But I don't hate her. That surprised me. I thought I would. Thought I'd want revenge, or at least the satisfaction of watching her fall apart without me. But all I feel now is tired. And maybe a little sad. Not for what she did, but for who she became to do it. I've started going on walks after work. No headphones. Just me, my thoughts, the wind. I nod at strangers and wonder how many of them have their own version of this story. How many are walking around with betrayals folded up inside them like old letters. I think about trust a lot. What it costs. What it's worth. How fragile it really is. We always imagine betrayal as a knife. Sharp. Sudden. But more often it's a slow leak. A drip of doubt. A look that lingers too long. A word that twists just slightly when you say it. And sometimes, it's not even about what you did. It's about what they needed to believe. I still keep her last letter in a drawer. Still haven't read it again. Maybe I never will. It doesn't hold answers. Just echoes. And the man staring back at me in the mirror? He doesn't flinch anymore. He knows who he is. And that's enough.